Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys 1/6 scale Star Wars The Clone Wars figure and vehicle unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at the ARF Trooper and ATRT. Now I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. I've popped a link to their site in the description, along with the discount code Justin's Collection, for 5% off your order if you decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, so you're notified as soon as brand new Hot Toys Star Wars content goes live on the channel. As for the box art, someone supersized a Star Wars box because this is a bloody massive box. Don't get me wrong, I love my larger format figures and vehicles. But bigger pieces always mean bigger boxes. Trying to find somewhere to store this isn't going to be easy. I will figure it out. Up front, we've got an image of the ARF Trooper riding the ATRT, the actual pieces inside the box, of course, a metallic foil Star Wars logo, and the name of the set at the bottom. Was it necessary to flip the box over? Not really. Just for the sake of completeness, I did it. On the back of the box, warnings, legal information, and their store locations. Gigantic Star Wars box. Does that also mean gigantic slipcover? I'm curious. Let's find out. Turns out, it does. This is the largest slipcover I've ever seen from them. And it looks awesome. I wish this was the main artwork on the front of the box versus what we actually ended up getting. On the right, and underneath the clone, the ATRT, then the ARF Trooper is packaged in his own mini clam tray. First in-hand impressions for him, precariously balancing that clam tray on the left side of the box. So far so good. They're expert cloners at this point. They've made so many freaking clone troopers. What we're going to do now is get all of his accessories minus the ATRT, we'll look at that separately, laid out in the light box, and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first. You've seen one Hot Toys Clone Trooper base, you've seen them all really, they pretty much all look like this. This mold has been in circulation for ages at this point. One day they're going to retire it, but certainly not today. The base topper is cast out of this almost greenish tinted grey plastic. Then we've got some red dry brushing around the edges of the sculpted tiles. I actually like that. For the nameplate, Star Wars Advanced Recon Force Trooper, that's what ARF stands for. Then up top, a height-adjustable, wide-scoop crotch grabber. When it comes to weapons, the usual suspects. DC-17 blaster pistol, painted in gunmetal, there's a metallic flake to it, and a silver dry brush over the top. Then a DC-15S blaster carbine painted in the exact same way, except for the pops of gold. There's no gold, of course, on the pistol. The iron sights are PVC plastic, they won't break on you, but the stock still isn't functional. I wish they'd figure out a way to make this actually work as a stock, because as it stands, it's articulated for literally no reason. Not really accessories, more so just part of his look. We get an antenna or this cap cover piece. You have to choose between them, they slot into his helmet, you'll see what I mean when we get the trooper out here. If we don't count the ATRT as an accessory, then this is my favourite of the bunch. We get some macro binoculars. Red paint apps front and back, glossy black for the lenses, you can see how light bounces off the surface, black wash all over the entire thing, and some darker yellow shading to make this thing look particularly nasty. The strap, I looked at Hot Toys website, Sideshow's website, and the pre-order announcement. No mention of this being genuine leather. I smelt it, and it doesn't smell like real leather either, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this strap is made of pleather. Lastly, a decent, but not quite full array of hands. We've got trigger finger ones, and the fingers are soft enough so that you can pry them open to pop the weapons in there. They're soft enough, but they could definitely be softer. The grips on those weapons are really chonky. Maybe heat the hands up first before you do that. 2 gripping hands, 1 open palm hand or macro binocular holding hand, and 1 splayed out finger hand. Why the heck don't we have 2 of these? How else is he supposed to hold the macro binoculars? And only one pointing finger hand, digging the weathering on the back of the armor with this brown speckling and the satin finish for the gloves. What we're going to do now is get the ARF trooper himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. The ARF trooper, he's great, no question. They've taken all of their best clone bits, their most up-to-date clone body, the fabric bodysuit, the armor that we got with the 501st clone, but new paint applications, and a brand new helmet mold, cobbled it all together to give us an ARF trooper. He does exactly what it says on the tin, and a little bit more with some modularity for the helmet, but we'll get to that. So is he worth the price of admission alone? Long story short, no, I don't think he is. He's exceptional, but the real star of the show isn't the ARF trooper or the ATRT. It's when you combine them. The ARF trooper riding that walker, that is proper centerpiece material, and we'll get to that a lot later in the video. Up close and personal, kicking things off with the ARF trooper's bucket. Dude, that is a sick looking clone trooper helmet. It's such a different and interesting design. Versus the normal Phase 2 helmet, I don't think there's any reuse here, at least none that I can spot. That means this helmet is a brand new mold specific to the ARF trooper. Will they reuse it in the future? Yeah, probably. They don't like to invest in new molds unless they can get their money's worth out of them. The only real new things about this guy, though, are the helmet and the paint applications, the weathering pattern. If you were to take this helmet, pop it on ARF Trooper's body, what you'd be left with is a relatively generic looking but heavily weathered 501st Phase 2 Clone Trooper. Luckily, his helmet is so distinct that it adds a lot of visual interest to him. Even if you've already got a bunch of 501st Clone Troopers in the collection, this guy is going to stand out. Mostly because of these almost khaki, slightly greenish tinted sculpted plastic fin panel thingos. Not sure how to describe them, but they are removable. We'll get there. This antenna, also removable, made of die cast. That's a nice touch. Then you can bring in this piece and slot it in to cover up the gap. When you plug it in there, it slots in place very securely. To remove it, you can push it out from the inside of the helmet. There's enough clearance to fit a tool in there. You don't have to remove the helmet if you don't want to. Taking these PVC sculpted plastic leather looking panels off, there's even more detail to look at underneath them. He's not as cool in my opinion without them, so in my collection, I'm always going to rock him wearing them. There's even weathering underneath, so he's meant to be displayed like this. Then around the back, we've got this sculpted triangular section, the vent up top for the fin, pitting and dirt and grime absolutely everywhere. The mouth area is done in this semi-metallic finish, and we've got a separate inset glossy piece of plastic for his visor. That means there's an actual gap around the edge, making that look a little bit more believable. I had to try it. ARF Trooper Body 501st Phase 2 helmet. Totally compatible, same neck connector. The helmet sits a little low, but you can adjust the chest armor to accommodate for it. Would I ever rock him like this? Absolutely not. Let's go back to his ARF Trooper helmet. And back to stock. I've reinstalled his antenna and these bits. They're mostly held in place with magnets around here, but then they slot in underneath the bottom part of the visor, front and back. I would suggest getting those bits situated first, then you can let the magnets take over. Around the back, his ribbed fabric spandex bodysuit covers his neck, then extends up underneath the helmet. If you were planning on using a Tamura Morrison head sculpt with the ARF Trooper, you're going to need to rely on that fabric neck cover because he does not have a skin tone neck underneath it. His back armor is sculpted ABS plastic, there's some detail work for this back panel, with a black wash in the crevices. And his belt is slightly adjustable up and down, more so left and right. Back around the front, I'm struggling to think of new and different interesting things to say about Hot Toys Clone Troopers because we've seen so many of them. Anyway, his shoulder pads are attached with elastic straps so you can move them around. The The straps connecting the back armor and the chest plate, they're PVC plastic, a little bit soft and flexible. You can rotate the bicep guards, same thing with the elbow pads, and the gauntlets. All of this stuff is adjustable for maximum range of motion during posing. His chest armor plate sits on top of the ab armor. That you have to watch out for, because otherwise, with them making contact constantly, if you're crunching him forward and you're not being mindful of those pieces, you may cause some paint rub. Comms panel on the right gauntlet, but not the left, so it's an asymmetrical design, and there's a black wash in between the buttons to help them stand out. Let's talk about the weathering. Besides the helmet, the weathering is the star of the show. This guy looks like he's seen some serious action. This ARF trooper has been through some shit. The only complaint I have is all of this weathering, the brown pitting, the scratches, the way it looks like the blue paint apps are scuffing and then wearing away in certain sections. It's all printed, not hand painted. That means if you picked up 2 ATRTs and therefore 2 ARF troopers, their weathering is going to be identical. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If only there was subtle variants, an A, B, C version of the ARF trooper, that way we could pick and choose when buying and not just get the same exact figure multiple times. Just a suggestion, they're never going to do it anyway, because it would overcomplicate the manufacturing process, introducing variants like that. But a collector can dream. Doing it this way with the printing, it just eliminates risk, because you're never going to have one ARF trooper rolling off the production line looking better or worse than the others in the batch. They're all exactly the same. Now his undersuit, nice stretchy spandex, it's flexible enough to get out of the way during posing. His leg armor is weathered asymmetrically, different weathering patterns from one side to the other. Love the way that looks with the blue chipped off. Knee pads, they're adjustable, you can move them around. And you can adjust the shin armor. These thigh plates, they're pretty tight on there. When you move them, the leg itself tends to move, but if you hold it in place, you can get a touch of movement out of them. Coming down to his boots, split cut design, and fully painted tread that's been weathered. I just thought of something. If you've got 501st clones, if you've got multiples of them, and their weathering is matching, but you want to pick up multiple ARF troopers, switch the ARF trooper bucket with the Phase 2 clone helmet. This is the ARF trooper body, this is the 501st clone. So that way, your 501st clones look different from one another, and your ARF troopers are slightly different from one another. This thing is a bloody monster. It takes up almost the entire frame. Before we can discuss it, there is a little bit of assembly required, so we may as well do that. First things first, the antennas. They're made of real die-cast metal, they're connected with a bracket, and the pegs are keyed. The back one's a square, whereas the front is a circle, and there's a rubber gasket on the inside of that peg port to really lock everything in place. Once you push these all the way in, it's a nice secure fit. The cannon next, hose goes in the back port, then the gun goes in the front one, and it's a snap fit peg, not held in place with friction. You need to push this in. Once you hear the click, it's seated properly. For the pedals, peg port and peg port and peg. Do this on both sides, push them in place, they are held in with friction. This next one has an element of choice to it. If you're planning on displaying the ATRT like this, sitting down, use these brackets, connecting the body of the ATRT to its legs. If the ATRT is going to be standing up, this is what you're going to want to go with. The actual functional pistons with ball joints on either end. And it's done. Well, sort of done. I went with the collapsed versions of the piston bracket pieces, but I'll switch them out for these when I've got the ATRT standing straight up and down. This thing is still sizable, but now thanks to the antennas, it's even taller and longer because of this massive cannon. The only way to do this without it constantly bumping into the camera is to look at all of the little details individually, which is exactly what we're going to do. The front cannon swivels left and right on this metallic gold connector. It hinges up and down, and that cable that slots into the ATRT itself is a little bit longer than it needs to be, so that there's enough excess hose. When you bring it up, it comes out, but It doesn't unplug itself from the port that you slid it into. There's gaps in the sculpt work, some weathering on the cannon, and I love this blade on the underside. Check this out. The pedals that we installed have a really decent range of motion to them. They go all the way forward and all the way back, past the point that you'd expect them to. They get caught on the armor plate if you're not careful, so just watch out for that. Pedals themselves black wash in the sculpt work, lighter grey dry brush. Then the armor panels have this windburn or oil stain effect to them. I did say them, because there is one on the other side still articulated for the pedal and different weathering for these oil splotches. The texture of this, it's so visceral. You can feel all of that grit on the surface as you run your fingers across it. And I've just now spotted this 501st Arabesh logo. Is it on the other side? Yep, absolutely. The front of the ATRT, you can see that gold connector piece for the cannon. And it's very angular, quite geometric in the way it's been designed. These fins, they're made of ABS plastic. They feel pretty sturdy. This flat-headed arrow up top sort of mirrors the look, the shape of the ATRT itself. The handlebars, top and bottom, are articulated. They feel flimsy. I would watch out for the bottom ones in particular. That flex is making me very nervous. This is my first complaint. The printing for that screen is abysmal. It's so blurry, I can't even tell what that's supposed to be. It doesn't look very Star Wars-y to me either. We'll touch on that more in the pros and cons segment. But then directly below the screen, multiple different colors for the buttons. That I do like. And another printed screen. The quality of that one is a little bit better than the upper screen. Are these meant to be fire extinguishers, or are they fuel canisters? I'm sure someone knows exactly what every single piece, nut, bolt, piston on this ATRT is supposed to be for and what it's called. If that's you, let me know down in the comments. The weathering on this seat is beautiful. The brown speckling, the brown wash in the ribbing. This is made of a softer PVC plastic. It's not ABS like pretty much everything else. Not a huge fan of the mold line that's visible on both of these back canisters and the mismatched sculpt work. You see that? How it doesn't quite meet how it's supposed to? I'm not sure what happened, but not a big deal for me, just something to be aware of. I do, however, like the paint applications, the black wash and the grey pitting. On the underside of the ATRT, there's a jet engine intake looking thing with these two fins on either side, slots sculpted into them, and heavy weathering on the inside. Then on the outside, an oil stain effect, like oil has seeped out of these slots and is slowly dripping down, leaving behind this residue. It's almost time to extend the legs, because trust me, I'm just as excited as you are to see it. But before we do, look at the size of these things, and the feet, they're almost as big as my entire hand. And they really needed to be, because it's already quite heavy, and then you're popping an ARF trooper on top of it. To be able to balance, the feet needed to be this big. The weathering, though, nothing could have prepared me for how filthy these feet are. It ends right around here, then it's just normal weathering and chipping, but it looks like the ARF trooper has tried to clean certain spots, but he's in the field. He doesn't have time to do a proper clean on his walker, and that's why it looks like this. It's caked in mud, and that too is textural. You can feel this stuff on the surface. Underneath the feet, some visible screws. They don't really bother me, but I like the rubber pads, because this is all ABS plastic. If this was on a glass shelf and the pads weren't there, it wouldn't have had any grip. You ready? Let's do it. Ratchets, 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 and ratchets. Bringing the legs down, super easy. And now, this is what we're left with. Some light housekeeping though, I need to switch out these pistons. Bringing the other leg down off camera, I noticed a couple of things. First, this is made of PVC, so that's not going to break on you. And second, while the legs are attached to the body on ratchets, they're also ball joints, so you can get a little bit of flex out of them. Is that entirely necessary? No, probably not, but I like the extra range. I can't lie. When you've got this thing posed as though it's walking, being able to tilt the legs, that might come in handy. Now the question is, how sturdy is it? Are the joints tight enough? Are the feet planted enough? Is it safe to leave the ARF trooper on the ATRT, or will the joints buckle under this thing's weight? Then you'll walk into the room to find the ARF trooper on the floor one day. I don't think that's going to happen. This thing is pretty sturdy. Most of the weight is positioned over the back legs, so this thing doesn't really want to lean forward. Like, just wobbling it, as you can see, it stabilizes itself. The joints are so tight that they aren't going to buckle under its weight. The feet themselves are already pretty heavy, so that's another thing working for it. Holy shit, how is my turntable even able to do this? It's served me well over the years, and rotating around with this ATRT on top of it, very impressed. The ATRT itself is so big, it's going to grab your attention immediately in the collection. Like, you will look at it straight away and it'll keep your attention because there's so much detail on the surface. It's got presence, it's well painted, and the engineering is second to none. Look at me, I'm already gushing and I've not even put the ARF trooper on top of this thing yet. I will do that, but we'll save it for the end of the video for the wrap up, just because I reckon that's going to be a very special shot. For a quick side-by-side comparison, on the left ARF trooper, in the middle ATRT, and on the right a 501st clone trooper. That ATRT is an absolute unit, taking up almost the entire height of the frame. It towers over regular 1/6 scale figures, and that's exactly what it's supposed to do. With the ARF trooper on top of it, that is going to be an unbeatable pair. Going over articulation, if you already own any Hot Toys clone troopers really released after the first 501st figures, and chances are you do if you're watching this, stick around for the helmet, then you can skip the rest of this segment, because from the neck down, this is just a 501st trooper. He's got a ball joint at the base of the neck, then a double ball peg inside the helmet. If you're relying on that double ball peg, you don't get much range because of these pieces, but you can remove them. Then you'll get more range out of it. But, hinging the head forward at the base of the neck, he'll look down to about there. Looking up to there, swivel and pivot side to side, also restricted by these bits. Shoulder pads are on elastic straps. I prefer to tuck them underneath the chest armor straps, but you could always put them over the top if you wanted. His arms will go up to there, unhindered by the spandex undersuit, going forward and back on clicky ratchets. There's a butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow on clicky ratchets, and this strap here, you can either put over the top of the armor or have it sit underneath. I prefer underneath. That way you'll get a little bit more range out of the elbow. For the wrist peg, it's a ratcheted hinge and swivel. The sculpted plastic armor does collide with itself, just watch out for that. Crunching forward to there, going back to there, it gets gappy though. Swivel and pivot side to side. His legs will go forward to there, you can rotate the thigh armor, then get a couple more clicks out of them. Going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh. Double bend at the knee on clicky ratchets, going past 90. Tuck in those straps, or you can have them sitting over the top. Split cut boot designed for the ankles, and a double ball peg, good for forward and back, rotation, as well as ankle tilt. But only a little. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing is this stupid antenna. It just doesn't want to stay in there. Why was it not held in place with magnets or something? Using friction alone is not enough. It slots in, it stays in, but if you bump it, or you move his helmet too aggressively, this thing is going to fall off pretty much immediately. The second annoying thing is the hand selection. Why don't we get pairs of these? They've only given us one open palm hand, one pointing finger hand, and one splayed out finger hand. Go back to giving us pairs. We need them. The third annoying thing is, what are these blurry ass screens for the ATRT? Surely they could have given us high resolution graphics for these screens, because right now they look pretty much illegible. The first cool thing is weathering. This ATRT is a masterclass in 1/6 scale weathering. It is absolutely filthy. It's caked in dirt, it's scratched up, there's pitting, there's oil stains. I love everything about the way this has been painted. The second cool thing is how modular the ARF Trooper helmet is. Antenna or no antenna, doable. You can then remove these fins down below, and what you're left with is a completely different looking ARF Trooper helmet. I only wish we could buy ARF Troopers separately instead of them being packaged with the ATRT, because I would love to grab another one. The third cool thing is the little rubber stoppers on the underside of the ATRT's feet. Maybe not show accurate, but it means that in 1/6 scale, if you've got this thing on a glass shelf with the ARF Trooper on top of it, it shouldn't slip and slide around. Wrapping up on the ATRT and ARF Trooper from Hot Toys from Star Wars The Clone Wars. This is a centerpiece set. If you have a Clone Wars collection, and you've got room for an ATRT sized vehicle, get this. Like, I'll keep it so simple. The ARF Trooper, you already know what to expect. We've gotten so many clones from them. This is paint by numbers. Same body as always, same ribbed fabric bodysuit, same armor, but new paint applications and a new helmet. Reused weapons. But when you combine the ARF Trooper with the Walker, that's when this set comes into its own. Because you start to look at the finer details, like the brand new helmet, and the presence that it commands. It's something that will literally stop people in their tracks when they walk into the room. They see a 1/6 scale clone trooper on a 1/6 scale Walker. You just can't beat that. That's the real raison d'etre for this set. The reason for being. The presence of the two pieces combined. I've said presence way too much already, but it's the best way to describe what's going on here. So at the end of this, do I recommend the ARF Trooper and the ATRT as a set, or only the ATRT? Do yourself a favor. Get the set. It makes the most sense. Because a normal 501st clone on a ATRT, that's cool. But something so unique and different in an ARF Trooper that's only available in a set with the ATRT, we don't know if we're ever going to get another 501st ARF Trooper like this. Don't miss the chance. If you want the ATRT, get the frickin' set. Now, I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. I've popped a link to their site in the description, along with the discount code Justin's Collection, for 5% off your order if you decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video. I would suggest getting those pieces slot underneath the front there. Fabric outfit. There's